Hello everyone. In this video, let's discuss whether there are any alternative approaches available to run a piece of code on the main thread apart from this GCD DispatchQueue.main.async. So this is quite common usual approach and also a very efficient approach that we use in our multi-threaded programming. So in this video tutorial, let's see whether there are any other options available to run the code on the main thread. Okay, for example, the first one what we have is, for example, here I have taken a view controller, a subclass of UI view controller, details view controller. I have started an operation. I am doing something in the background. I am doing something in the background, and this is, let's say this is my background operation, and once it is done, this is something I am doing the UI update, let's suppose. Okay, so this is the quite usual approach. So in this tutorial we will discuss whether there are any approaches that we can do after an asynchronous background operation, can updating the UI on the main thread or doing something on the main thread apart from this DispatchQueue.main.async. Do we have any other approaches? So this is for interview point of view also, this is very important. Why? Because you may get the question asking so is there are any approaches apart from, what are all the different, is there any approaches available apart from GCD's DispatchQueue.main.async, or what are all the ways that we can we have in multi-threaded programming to do a task on the main thread. Okay, so the first one, those who are having the Objective-C background, they must be very familiar with this approach, which is performSelector. Okay, on the main thread hand, here we give the selector. Of course it is an Objective-C method. That is the way, of course I have already written the method, but I have removed it. Why? Because that is the reason. For example, let's say update UI is the method. In this I'll print this update operation I have done using the performSelector. Okay, this is something, and here I can call it update UI with nothing. Wait until then, this decides whether it should be a synchronous operation or asynchronous operation. If it is true, then it is a synchronous operation. Why? Because rest of the program has to wait until this is done. If this is false, then it will become a asynchronous operation. Okay, this is what it says. Argument of selector refers to an instance method update UI that is not exposed to Objective-C. So this method we should be expose it to Objective-C. That is the reason this is required. So just to silence it, and okay, and it is saying self is not required. Of course we are in the background, so this usual taking the self is needed. So here I can write like self, and here just the optional chaining stuff. So the first is using the performSelector. This is how we can update UI, run something on the main thread. Let's see whether it is working or not. In the view controller instance I have taken, I am calling the start operation method, and when I run it, it waits for 2 seconds, and after the 2 seconds, one thing is this, and the second thing is this is supposed to be called, but it is not getting called. Just a second. Update UI, is it correct? Update UI. Okay, with null, wait until then true, and it should come here. So I have paused the video and did some research. So actually what is happening is, if I do this, if I do like this, what is happening is there is something that is happening. What is happening is, this details view control instance I am creating just to start the operation, so it is going here, and what is happening is this self is becoming nil. So that is the reason this performSelector is not getting executed, and inside this, why? Because inside this, why? Because it's a background operation, it's going out of the scope, and this is obviously it is becoming null. So what is happening is, I have put a got to check whether why it is becoming nil. So self is becoming nil, but this main async is getting called. So that's the reason this is how I had to take it. Why? Because I have separately created an instance so that it will always, this self will not become nil. So this approach is not working, performSelector is not working. So like this. So strong self, but this way anyways it will not become nil. So let me have a guard statement and take a strong self. So when I run it, now I can see the first one is 0. The default one is main.async. The second one is performSelector, where Objective C we need to expose it to Objective C. The first one is performSelector, which is working fine. Now let me add it here. The second approach being operation queues. So how operation queues? It's as simple as operation queue. Let me write it. Operation queue dot main dot add operation, or you can add a block also instead of creating another operation. Say print. So what to write? It's a second approach we're discussing, and it is using the operation queue. So this also runs. It also runs it on the it also runs on the main thread, but here based on this wait until then, this will be executed synchronously or asynchronously based on true value. But whereas when you use OperationQueue.main.operation, what happens is the operation is executed asynchronously. Okay, so this is always asynchronous, and here if it is true it will become sync. If it is false it will become async. Okay, now this is one thing, OperationQueue.main.addOperation. Now the third approach is, we don't use it much, but it's run loop. So how in the run loop we can run is same, RunLoop.main dot, it's having a performance block. Same, I can write and print saying I'm running something on the main thread using my run loop. Okay, so the third one is run loop, second one is operation queues, and this can be sync and async, this can be only async. And when it comes to run loop, what happens is the operation on the main thread, the closure is executed always synchronously. Okay, and if you go much inside, there are some modes in the run loop. We can use all that to make it asynchronous or synchronous. So we're not going in detail into that. Why? Because we just want to answer a simple question where how many ways I can run a code on the main thread. If I'm in the background, I need to run something on the main thread. So what are all the different ways? So the first initial approach is DispatchQueue.main.async on the UI update. The second one is of course this is default. The first one, apart from this, the first one is performSelector, and you should expose this method to the Objective C. Why? Because it needs Objective C exposure, and it can be async or sync based on this wait until then bool value. And second one is OperationQueue.main.addOperation. You can add the operation and it will always be a synchronous operation. And the run loop, and it will always be synchronous until unless you go with the modes, and RunLoop.main.perform. So basically these are the different approaches that we can use to perform to run the code on the main thread in Swift programming language. However, these all methods allow you to execute on the main thread, whereas DispatchQueue.main.async is generally the preferred approach in modern Swift programming, as it is more efficient and has better support for error handling and cancellation. Correct? It is having better support for, it is efficient and has better support for error handling and cancellation. So though we have other ways, you might have seen in Swift programming language that we don't use this much, very rare, and we simply go ahead and use this DispatchQueue.main.async. So that's the video is all about. Hope this video is helpful. Thank you.